Hello to all of our listeners and welcome back to The Parent Solution, your one-stop shop for all things educational. Today is a guest episode and I have a fantastic guest with me here today. I have Honoria here with me today. She actually has a nickname of Nod, which is a little bit easier for me to say, but Honoria has a mission to help each student who wants to find the college or the university that is the best fit for them with, of course, the best possible financial package. She is an attorney and she's based in Raynham, Massachusetts, and she's providing a new trajectory for students. She is an independent educational consultant and the founder of PCCI. She helps focus her efforts on colleges that academically, socially, and financially are the most appropriate for students. And this, of course, puts the student in the best interest in order to succeed in college and beyond. She does this by ensuring that the student is taking the right classes, which builds a very strong foundation. She shows them how to use SAT scores as a tool to their advantage. And she assists in researching and finding the right school for each student, which means scheduling the university visits and interviews, and of course, assisting with the entire application process. She's been practicing law for over 25 years, and she's helped clients with numerous financial matters and long-term planning. Now, over the years, she's taken note of a recurring theme amongst her clients that's often cropped up, which is inadequate planning regarding higher education. And so we come to the launch of PCCI in early 2021. Honoria.
2019.
Oh, 2019. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, then my mistake. 2019. Very nice to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, this is fun. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. That's right. So let's maybe start with talking about what you were driven to start this business for. I kind of gave our listeners a little bit of a hint, but what is it that you started this business for? Why?
I really feel truly very passionate about the fact that I think education is a key to not only future success, but social mobility and giving you different options, different opportunities, and that anyone who has the desire to reach that should be allowed to do so. And colleges, and then when I say college, I mean college universities, for me, it's the same thing. They're just so expensive and cost prohibitive for so many people, or at least that's what they think. And without really being prepared, sometimes they just go into it kind of haphazardly and just borrow whatever they don't have and assume that that's going to be eventually recouped when they graduate. And that's not really necessarily the case because as a bankruptcy attorney, I see the downside of that a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's a better way here. There's so much else going on behind the scenes that can make a college affordable for anybody's budget or family. So my approach is I want to get any kid that's motivated and wants that opportunity. It's my mission to find an opportunity for them that gives them the academics they want, the social life they want, and doesn't break the family budget. So to do that, you really got to see where these kids stand out and why would a certain school be better for them versus another, and tap into what really is the magic formula of merit aid. Because if you have financial aid, great, that's all based on the FAFSA. You're going to have a formula and so forth. And in addition or aside from that is also merit aid. And that's really based on the student's academics or other attributes where they stand out. And that can make or break an opportunity for a lot of people. So they see these prices that are like shocking. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's the price at all that you're going to pay if we do our research right and you get that down to something that family can afford. It's kind of like shopping for you shouldn't be paying sticker price in most cases.
I agree. I think so. I know that there's quite the conversation around whether or not people should even go to college or whether or not they should even have that as an option. I do think that there are certain fields, like, for example, a lawyer or a teacher, if you're working in a public school, where you should have a degree, you should have that sense of formal education. But I know that a lot of people say that that's not something that is necessary for success in life. Not sure what your thoughts are on that.
I think it varies by individual. That's why I see my role as, okay, you're coming to me because you want that. And I'm
Right.
to help you achieve that in the best way possible for
Mm-hmm.
a person. So if someone is wanting to go to trade school or start up a business or whatever and bypass the traditional university route, that's fine. That's just not my client.
Right.
So I'm not here to push something down their throat they don't want. The premise is, no, you want this,
Right.
but let's see where the best place is for you. And the other key difference, I think, between my philosophy for the student and the parents, and this is why I always have a chat with the parents first, see if we're on the same page on our ideas and goals here,
Mm-hmm.
and a chat with the student to make sure they actually want to talk with me, because I'm going to be very collaborative with the student, primarily one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
But my approach is, if you're going into higher education, you want that opportunity, I'm not so laser focused on what do you want to be when you grow up, because I honestly don't think most teenagers, never mind adults, can answer that question. I'm more concerned about, what are you interested in?
Mm-hmm.
What do you naturally gravitate to? Where are your strengths academically in that sense? And let's make sure we get this particular student into an environment that is going to allow them to grow, is going to allow them to explore and experience academics that they can get excited about and succeed with. Because there's so many things available once you get out of the high school system.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers and topics and things that they might not even ever have heard of, and they get exposed to it, and the light bulb can go off and go, hey, I really like this and I'm good at it. Let's go down this path. But you have to be in the right environment to find the path. So the best way I can explain that in a more concrete term is, if you have a very STEM oriented, mathematically minded student, that's what they love. That's not me, but let's say that's what they love. I don't want to put them in a school that doesn't have great academics in those fields and is more concentrating on writing and verbal things. And that's not their jam. And conversely, someone that's more creative and articulate and visually motivated, but not mathematically motivated, you need them to be in an atmosphere where they can pursue things that gear towards those attributes rather than jamming computer science, engineering, mathematics, and that kind of stuff being the both, and of course there's places where you can get both, but you got to see where their comfort is and what's available. And of course, once we narrow it down to places they actually go and visit, then they get a much more substantial flavor for what it means to be on that particular campus.
Right. And so you would always advise visiting the campus before you jump into actually being on the campus then?
I would advise, and I do advise, once we get to what I call our target list, because we start big and we shrink
narrow
it down.
things down.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Once we get down to the target list, then yes, I expect the parent and the student, or parents and student, to go visit these schools for a couple of reasons before you apply. And there's many reasons. One, from the student perspective, can I visualize myself here? Is this where I want to be for the next 4 years? And can I see myself keying into this place? That's because I think if they're going to succeed away from home, they need to want to be there and they want to be part of that community and really get involved. So that's always what I strive for. But from the other side of the equation, it's just as important for the university to know you're really interested, that you're showing demonstrable interest, that you've been there, that if you had the opportunity to interview, you took it. So now, behind the scenes, you're up a couple of notches over someone else that's just casually sending out an application, seeing what sticks.
Right. Gotcha. That makes sense. And so I think that you must sometimes get the question of, well, can't I just talk to my guidance counselor about all of this?
Sure. I would love them to just talk up to their guidance counselor about this. I'm not trying to usurp them in any way. Mm-hmm. However, what is really happening in reality, and this has been consistent no matter if I'm dealing with private schools, public schools, charter schools, I don't see any difference. If you're lucky, you might get 5 to 10 minutes a year, maybe, with your guidance counselor.
Right.
And let's not forget the guidance counselor's role in high school. The guidance counselor's role in high school is to make sure you graduate from high school in 4 years with all your credits and all your required things. They don't know what your parents' social economic perspective is. They don't have time to sit there and go through the minutia and details of where this particular kid should apply. Most of the time, they don't know schools outside of their immediate region and why or why not that might be a good fit for a particular student. So what ends up happening in my experience is you have the good students that are doing academically just fine. They go in, they say hello, they get a pre-printed schedule. This is what we recommend. Hi, see you next year. Bye. And then you have the other students that may have other things going on at home or otherwise that need more attention. And it's not college planning. It's let's get these kids to survive and get through our system here. So there's none of what we're doing in any kind of meaningful way. At best, what I've seen is students being directed to a website or two to go do their own research. And yeah, let us know maybe senior year who you're applying to and they'll send out stuff for you. I mean,
Right.
not planning. That's not maximizing anything. And my biggest pet peeve with those self-directed research, there's tons of websites on there. You can get a lot of stats. But my biggest peeve when students or families do this without any guidance is by definition, they could already be excluding so many things that should stay in the mix early on. For example, do you want a small school, a large school, an urban school, a suburban school, an urban school with a campus, a suburban school with no campus, and every permutation of these things? And these kids most of the time haven't left home. How are they supposed to answer that question? They think they want a big or a little school. And then I've had this happen so many times. They start with a preconceived notion. And then they get out there and start visiting because I don't exclude things by size. That's not a good way to look. And then they start seeing things and go, I really like this school or that school. I'm like, you realize this has 16,000 students and you told me you liked a small school. Well, now you know. And that's the point. Now you know you have concrete things to measure against. But we start with the essence of the school. What's there that they should go look at in the first place? Not these other kind of metrics that don't necessarily matter early on. Okay. Later they can figure out, yeah, I'm really gravitating towards this type of school. But early on, they don't necessarily know that. Okay. So I really want to have people do is be very efficient with time because gas is expensive. Traveling is expensive. Don't waste your time. Time is so important. And so you want to be efficient in that. You shouldn't just start driving around the country willy-nilly looking at schools because they're pretty or somebody's friend heard of something about this one and you're going to go look. Why are you there? Because they should all look good. They're all expensive to start with. So that's not a good way to judge. You want to see, do they have what you need first? And then let's go to the next level and start seeing where you might want to go check it out.
Gotcha. So having the proper guidance and really being able to properly plan so that you can be efficient with your time. Yeah. And that's a good point. Actually, I know that that's something that we don't always think about anymore is the fact that I have to drive there. Oh, I have to take time to travel there, right? It's not that the tour is an hour. It's that I have to spend 15 minutes or 20 minutes getting there before I can actually do the tour. And then I have 15, 20 minutes home. What does that look like in terms of a schedule for myself? Is that realistic? Things like that, I definitely thought about when I was going to university. That was a really big proponent or a really big factor in where I chose to go was location, which I imagine would be an important factor that you want to help people think about considering.
Yeah. One of the first things I always ask the parents is, are there any restrictions on what I can look for, specific geographical, you know. And if they say, I want to stay within so many hours or whatever, then okay, I need to know that or not. And then same thing with the student. I always ask them to be open-minded and push that comfort zone as much as they can because it allows for more diversity and things for them to stand out in. But I need to know that. And I also tell them, look, if you're telling me I'm on the East Coast. So if a kid tells me they're going to consider, they really want to go to California. Okay, that's great. Love it. But if you're telling me you're not going to be able to make plans, get on a plane and go visit those schools in California before you apply, then California is not really realistic for you, is it? Because you can't get there.
Right.
Right. So I expect you to get there. Now, I had a student that did do that. He applied. He's from Massachusetts. He was looking at schools in North Carolina, Florida, California, and up here a few. And he got amazing packages. And part of the reason, not only academically, he's stellar, but he was not just a dot on their radar. He was a person to each one of these schools. And we had really great offers to compare between them, and he had been there. So he could really see, okay, I could really see myself here, not so much there, but they made the effort.
Right.
I lost your video feed. I can hear you still.
Okay. Perfect. Hang on. Back?
Nope.
Okay. Oh, that's weird. Cause I still see myself.
I see myself. I just don't see you.
Okay. No problem. We'll just keep going. Maybe I'll come back.
Okay.
Okay. So I just have one more question for you before we kind of close it out here. What is it that you would recommend if someone is homeschooled? Have you ever had that experience before? Is it possible for students who are homeschooled to also get into college without too much trouble?
Yeah, there's the only difference I've seen with the homeschool application process is just sometimes they might want you to send different credentials or, use a different portal. I've seen that on. But the biggest thing is making sure you're not missing out on the requirements, like the prerequisites for each school. So I want you to have, for the most part, a certain number of credits in different academics, like English, math, science, lab sciences, maybe foreign languages. And the only concern I would have there is, okay, just making sure the homeschool parent or person that's doing that is aware that they have to, cover that and not get off track. And also staying on top of the testing requirements and when to use those scores or not and how often to take them because, they're not getting any other outside input.
Right.
But right now we're in a situation where I'm sure you're aware the SATs, for the most part, most schools post-COVID have stayed test optional. However, that's not as clear as it sounds. Some schools are very easy about it. They just say, we require the score. Okay, that's an easy one.
Right.
Others have gone test free, which is not only do they not require the score, they're not going to look at it if you send it. They have changed their paradigm completely to look at your strength of schedule, your academics, and so forth. And then there's this amorphous kind of gray area with the test optionals where, well, it's not required, but it's considered if you send it. So to me, that's like, okay, we know what their range is, what they want to see. And if we're in that range, of course we want to send it because it's another, additional thing to give you a leg up at that particular institution. So you don't necessarily want to assume just because it's test optional, you're not going to be sending any scores. And I think having those scores is even more helpful for the homeschool kid because it's a metric that's consistent with everybody else.
Right. And so it's not that it's not possible. You would just want to make sure that you have all the requirements and all of the different things that they're asking for. And I guess that plays I would assume that plays a really big role in deciding where you want to go because you then have to be specific about what sorts of requirements that school is asking for.
Right. So let's say, for example, if you're applying to, a very competitive, like liberal arts college or university, those tend to want minimum 2 years of a foreign language, the same foreign language, by the way, but really would prefer to see 3 or 4. So knowing that, and you don't have one, or you only have 2, you're not going to really pop there. Right.
Right.
So, and then you have other schools like the really STEM focused schools where they don't really care about that, but they really want to see you being heavily taking not only your required courses in math and science, but your elective in lab sciences and other things that pertain to the more techie side of what you think you're interested in. So they're going to weigh that a lot more heavily. So if you're taking honors AP classes in more of the written verbal type subjects like English, history, social sciences, and you haven't taken advantage of the highest level on the STEM subjects and you're applying to a STEM college, you're not going to pop there. And the GPA could be great. It's not just that number. It's what makes up that number.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Thank you so much for all of your insights and your expertise. I really appreciate it. Before we close out the episode, tell our listeners if they're interested in finding out more for whatever reason, or they want to be able to get a hold of you, where can we find you on the World Wide Web?
A couple of places. You can look up my website, obviously, which is personalcollegecounseling.com. You can also find me on Instagram. It's also Personal College Counseling, but with an underscore between each of the words. You can certainly call or text. The number's 508-622-5250, or email me directly, which is nod, to make it easy. So nod@personalcollegecounseling.com.
Oh, that explains your email address. Now I understand. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you showing up today. For those of you who are familiar, for the listeners who are familiar with the Parent Solution podcast format, you know that as of the drop date of this episode, there's a partner blog that we did as well. So if you would like to find all of the information all in one spot of this lovely episode and all of the wonderful things that we have here to offer, then that would be www.starstudents.co. Thank you so much for showing up today. I appreciate it. Nod, thank you for showing up. Thank you for all of your expertise and insights.
Thank you so much for having me.